Shelby Smith with Jim and Eat Crickets. Today we're going to chat about what our crickets eat, where you can get that feed, and what to do if you don't have access to it. So one of the biggest factors outside of the obvious environment things, which we've rehashed in several different videos, is feed quality. Feed quality makes a huge difference in terms of the growth of your crickets, the maturation, the predictability of all of your cycles. The higher quality the feed, the faster the crickets grow, the healthier they are, the less cannibalism you have. So feed is really, really important when it comes to raising crickets or keeping crickets, either at scale or for a personal either hobby or pet food or something like that. Feed is super, super important. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and in our case we are really, really lucky in that one of the largest specialty feed manufacturers here in the US is just 7 miles down the road. So we source our feed very, very locally, which I know is not always an option for everyone, but for us it is, and I'm really, really thankful that we have such a local source for such high quality feed. So our feed comes in 50-pound bags from BioForge Labs. So you may not be able to see this very well because there is a thread through it, but it is BioForge with meat insect diet. So this feed is blended specifically for insects, not specifically for crickets. I do know that he supplies folks who grow things like dubias and other insects, superworms. I don't know that they're necessarily feeding this stuff to superworms, but maybe they are. But this is not necessarily a cricket specific diet, but it is conducive to quick cricket growth. So they come in 50-pound bags like this. I don't know if he does it in larger bulk options, like a super sack sort of a size, which is like a 1 ton sack. We just do the 50-pound bags, which is fine. But where we get ours is BioForge Labs in Huxley, Iowa. And like I said, that's only 7 miles down the road from us. And just so you guys can kind of see the texture of this feed, as I just dump it everywhere, it is almost powder-like. It's not quite the consistency of like flour. If you bake a lot, you know what I'm talking about. It's more like cornmeal. So it's pretty ground up, but not so ground that it's like flour or cornstarch. Think of it kind of more like cornmeal. And this is a non-GMO blend, which I think is important. Either non-GMO or organic for something that you are feeding an insect is important due to pesticide residues from conventional feeds. So if you have a non-GMO or an organic option, always take that one, especially when you are trying to rear insects. Like I said, the residue levels are not necessarily harmful to us as humans, but your crickets or whatever you're trying to grow will appreciate it if you do non-GMO or organic. This one is non-GMO, so that's what we use here. If you are not lucky like me and only 7 miles away from BioForge Labs, you can get BioForge Labs feed. I don't know if he does the 50-pound bags. I'm sure he ships it. I don't know what the shipping rate would be, but I do know that he has had listings on eBay before for a 4-pound bag. I believe it's like $16 or something like that. I really can't recommend this stuff enough. Our crickets do really, really well on it. So if you can get it, this is the route I would go. And if you don't believe me, don't take my word for it. Check out our crickets enjoying the feed. I'm sorry that it is so loud in the background. We are in breeding time here, so we are quite loud at the moment. But the crickets really, really take to this feed. They eat it really well. There's hardly any waste, which is really, really important, especially for people who are growing on the commercial side. You want to reduce your feed waste as much as possible because that cuts into your margins. So, like I said, the crickets approve of this, and so do we. So now let's say that you do not have the BioForge insect diet with meat as an option. What do you need to look for in a feed source? So the first thing, like I alluded to earlier, either a non-GMO or an organic, if it's going to be grain-based, which is what I recommend, is going to be important. Because if whatever feed it is sourcing from a feed mill that uses conventional grain, the likelihood of a above ideal amount of pesticides is much, much higher. So non-GMO or organic is where I'd first start. So the second thing, rather than going and trying to find your own blend, just stick with something that already exists. So if you can find a non-GMO or organic chick starter, as in chick like baby chicken starter, that is usually ground into a powder like this, that is the best option. Usually those are slightly higher in protein than like a layer feed. So chick starters tend to be 20 to 22% protein, whereas layer feed tends to only be 16 to 18%. So you want that higher protein content. It is counterproductive in some ways to go really above 25% protein. So if you are doing your own blend, 20 to 25% protein, after that you're just making it more expensive than is useful. So that is the next thing. And then last thing, which I kind of already alluded to, is texture-wise, you do want a ground feed. You don't want, oftentimes you will find if you're going the chicken feed route or some other existing livestock route, typically that's either in a pellet or a crumble. And while the crickets can eat that, and I have fed mine out on crumbles before, I've never done pellets because actually I believe pellets were developed to keep insects out, so naturally that wouldn't work super great. But crumbles, they do get around crumbles just fine, but there is an increase in food waste, and it isn't as easy for them to access. And the goal for these crickets and any feeder crickets is to get them as grown and as healthy as quick as possible. So don't make them expend extra energy trying to break down a crumble. Just doesn't, it seems counterproductive to me. So that is probably the last thing that I would look for in a feed. Like I said, if you can find an already blended, some sort of chicken feed, poultry feed, game bird feed, something like that, that is ideal. If you are near a local farm store, they should be able to help you out. But like I said before, I would definitely stick with either a non-GMO or an organic feed, just to avoid a massive buildup in pesticides. Because if there is a significant amount of pesticide revenue, if there is a significant amount of pesticide residue, then that is going to impact the immune system of your crickets. It may not kill them flat out, but it is going to weaken them, and it is going to make them more susceptible to other sorts of diseases, viruses, things like that. Because at the end of the day, we are dealing with animals, and they are afflicted by many an illness. So, don't give them anything that's going to weaken them, is my point. I should also point out that the feed is only one of the components of things that we feed them. I mean, that's what we feed them through the entire life cycle. But one really important thing, if you have not gone and watched our extended videos on the whole breeding process in terms of laying the eggs and incubating the eggs and the hatching and all of that, then you would not know that we actually use potatoes for our pinheads when they are freshly hatched. So in addition, we do the feed from BioForge, then we also do the potatoes, and that helps twofold. That is a good way to get them some moisture with a lower risk. Theoretically speaking, we could just get the BioForge feed wet, moist, but man, then you have to deal with all sorts of other things like mold and other things like that. It just seems like more work. So potatoes work really well. They don't cause us many issues. So for the young ones, we use the potatoes as well. And I think that's all I have for you guys today about feed, as the crickets are having a little snack right now. If you do have any questions, please drop them in the comments below. Happy to help brainstorm through anything. If you are actually trying to like formulate your own feed or are wondering where and how you can get access to certain feeds, drop a comment. Happy to help out, and I will do my best to link an eBay listing to the BioForge food so that you guys have it. Thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate you being here. Like, comment, subscribe, all of the things. See you next time.